What's up, y'all? It's T, and welcome to T Unfiltered, which is essentially a podcast about navigating life. And I feel like as a young adult, I've had my fair share of ups and downs with life. So I guess my mission for this podcast is to share my story with you guys. Hopefully by sharing my stories, you all can gain some insight on situations that are similar to mine, and maybe it'll help figure out whatever's going on in life, because honestly, none of us know what's going on in our lives. It's very stressful. It's very weird. As a young adult, I did not think this is what life would be like. But without further ado, welcome to my new podcast. And obviously, my first episode is going to be about my time on Squid Games, the challenge, which was literally crazy. And I will be getting into all of that and all the questions that you guys have submitted. So thank you so much for being so supportive of me and my journey and asking questions and wanting to know about this experience. That makes me feel very loved. Love you guys. Please note that everything that is said on this podcast is purely my opinion. So take it as you will, take it with a grain of salt, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. Take it seriously or don't. That is really none of my business. Without further ado, let me get into the questions. Okay, so I'm gonna try to go in order of start to finish, essentially. So how I got to Squid Games to how I got out, So here we go. What made you wanna join Squid Games? And how did you find out about it and apply? So in February, I think, of 2024, I was watching the game show at like a house party, and it just looked so fun. And at the end of the episode, I think it said, if you're interested in applying, or if you think you can have what it takes to win, apply on our website. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Why not? So really how I found out was really just by watching the show, and why I wanted to join the show was really because at the beginning of every year, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a bucket list or anything like that, but I do try to I try to keep myself proactive in my life, I guess, if that makes sense, like not getting caught in the river of life and, taking charge of my life per se. So at the beginning of every year, I'll try to actively pursue things. So on top of applying for Squid Games, the challenge, I also applied to like a bunch of different like modeling and acting agencies and all that stuff too. So just a little fun fact. Also in 2024, this was the time where essentially I left my nursing job and I was just feeling very unsettled in my life. I just really didn't know who I was and what I wanted in life. And I didn't know who I was in regards to who I am outside of relationships. Like, who am I outside of my relationship with my parents? Who am I outside of my relationship with my friends? Who am I outside of my relationship with my husband at the time? I very much felt like I did things for the sake of others a lot. How I acted was for the sake of others. What I did with my life was for the sake of others. And so I feel like I was trying to figure out who I was, and this was one of those moments where I felt like I was doing this for me. So that's kind of what was going on. I was just very deeply unsettled with my life at the time, and so I think this was a way for me to feel like I was gaining control in my life. So yeah, that's kind of why I applied. How did you stand out to producers? I've been trying to get on Big Brother. Please give me tips. Okay, sorry y'all. My voice is really like, right now, because I've been dealing with this like sickness that has lasted for weeks. Very not fun. So if my voice sounds really weird and nasally, I promise this is not what I sound like. I'm just kind of sick. So like, please don't judge me. Okay. Anyway, how did I stand out to the producers? So when I applied for Squid Games, the challenge, and honestly, February of 2024 was a long time ago. So I don't really remember what I put on the application, but I just remember not taking myself too seriously. I wasn't racking my brains over what I was going to put on the application. I wasn't, fabricating a whole deep, sad story about my childhood or anything like that. Whatever I put on that application was true and genuine to who I am. So at that time, I was going through my quarter life crisis. I had just quit my job as a nurse. I started my design job. I felt like I was really dumb at my design job. Like, I felt like a loser, and I was just like really struggling with life. So that's what I said. I said that I didn't know who I was, and I was hoping that I could find myself on the show. I also did mention, my childhood and being the child of Vietnamese parents that came to America from the war, and those expectations that were placed on me as having better opportunities in America and having that sort of pressure to be a good daughter, to be a doctor, to be a dentist, to be a nurse, to make my parents proud. And that was a pressure that I was very heavily feeling at the time, I guess because I quit nursing. I was just really struggling with my self-identity at the time and wanting to make my parents proud, but in doing it in my way. So yeah, I talked about that too. And honestly, like, I said what I had to say and I just hit submit. And I think because I didn't take myself too seriously, it reads more genuine and honest. And for reality TV shows, I'm assuming that that's kind of what they want. You know, they want people that are just very open and honest and willing to speak their mind and willing to do things that they're going to want to do. They don't want to be held back by anything. So I think like with reality TV shows, this is purely just an assumption. I think they look for genuine people, just like people that know who. Well, I didn't know who I was at the time, but I guess I was self-aware enough about that. But people that don't put up a front, people that are very reactive and dramatic and genuine, like genuine reactions and all that stuff. So they want it to be as real and lifelike as possible, these kinds of shows. So yeah, I guess me being very, like, I have my heart on my sleeve all the time. And obviously, like, doing podcasts and stuff, I love talking and sharing my story. So I think that's kind of what stood out to them as well. Also, not taking myself very seriously, very heavily shined through in the application, because when I found out that I passed the first round of applications, I had an interview, like a Zoom interview, and they pretty much like read through my application. And one of the things that stood out to them was that I guess they said name 3 fun facts about myself, and one of them was that I have a bird named Baby, and then another one was that I fence or whatever, and then I think the last one was that I'm really bad at games, which is true. Like, I suck at games, but I put that on there because, you know, it's very tongue-in-cheek, I guess. It's kind of funny. I'm applying for a game show, but I suck at games. But that is very true, and it is kind of a funny fact in the context of me applying for a game show. So that stood out to them, and they even asked me that in my interview. So just being very honest and genuine, I think, really is, be yourself. I know it's very cheesy, but, you know, be yourself. Don't think about it too much. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just word vomit. I don't know. Honestly, I think I just got lucky. I don't know how I got in. Would you want to do another reality TV show like Big Brother? So while I was in Squid Game's a challenge, I was miserable. The food was not good, wasn't getting any sleep, barely got to see the sun, and it was very stressful, you know, it's kind of stressful. So I definitely thought to myself, like, man, I'm never doing this again. But the minute I got out, I was like, put me back in, I need to be in this again. So I don't know. I'm not very much of a reality TV show buff or like a game show buff. Like, I don't watch any of those shows actually. So me watching that show at a random party really was just random, and it was just luck or fate or whatever you call it. So I don't think I would apply to any other reality TV shows, just because while I am very out there and very open and honest, there are just some things that I'd rather not put on the internet for forever. Being mic'd up and having cameras around you at all times, it was kind of nerve-wracking. It did make me like a little like scared. So I don't know if I'd put myself in that situation again. But it was fun, and I would do another season of Squid Game the Challenge if I was allowed. So yeah. I liked that game show. I don't know if I'd enjoy any other game show. Was there preparation for the show, and how long was it? So I guess preparation for the show, I guess, starts with the whole interview process, right? So I applied in February of 2024. I was notified that I passed the first round of applications, I think in August or September. At that time, they did another interview with me on Zoom, in which I guess they recorded it and clipped it to like 1 minute and 30 seconds or whatever, and they send it to the producers to review. I made it past that round, and I can't really remember the sequence of events after that, but I definitely had to do a psych eval, social media check, probably another interview. I was talking to a lot of people, and ultimately I found out that I was accepted to be a part of the show in December, early December. So after that, they coordinated my flight. So I flew out to the UK. They paid for the flight and everything. Flew out in January. So I got to the hotel where we stayed for maybe 2 or 3 days while the other players were coming in. And in that time, we were doing orientation, the welcome videos, what to do and what not to do, what to expect, what to do if you need help. We got fitted for our clothes. We took our pictures and our little videos, like the like player 203. And in the time of being in the hotel for 2 or 3 days, we essentially were only allowed to go to these orientation things, eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and besides that, go back to our rooms and just sit in silence. Like, we didn't even have our phones or anything. We couldn't hang out with people in the hallways. We couldn't wander around the hotel. We had to just sit in our hotel rooms. So that was fun. And then eventually they woke us up in the middle of the night. They said, get your clothes on, we're getting on a bus and we're going. So in the middle of the night, yeah, that's when it started. What was the living situation like? What did they feed you guys? Walking into the dorms was so surreal. It looked and felt exactly like what it would look like in the actual TV show. There's no windows, there's no clocks, you know, all the bunk beds are like stacked up all against the walls and everything. There's the communal restrooms, the communal showers, and it felt very real. We were showering and able to kind of see each other. It was really funny because, you know, a lot of the taller players their heads would just be sticking out from behind like the shower doors. We would just like make jokes about like making eye contact and stuff. It was just so weird. Yeah, the communal restrooms thing was really hard for me. I don't know if I had a single normal poop in the dorms. The sleeping situation, yeah, that was real. We all had to sleep together in that room. There were a lot of people that snored. It was very loud at night, so that was fun. They allowed us to shower, but I think some days we didn't shower. I think I showered almost every day, but I think there were some days where, yeah, we couldn't shower. So after a few days, people did start stinking a little bit, I will not lie. And in the dorms, we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The food was terrible. I literally lost 10 pounds from being in there. But for breakfast, every single day, they would feed us this porridge, and it was like, oatmeal is good. Like, oatmeal is yummy. I can eat oatmeal. But this was, I don't know what it was. It was like goop. It was like grain goop with the texture of saliva. So it was really hard to eat that kind of stuff. So a lot of the times we were just starving. Like, we were just, whoa. And for lunch and dinner, they served us meals in those little tins, but they weren't necessarily flavorful or good, I would say. They were enough to reach our daily nutritional goals. No snacks in between or anything like that. It was kind of hard for me because I'm a snacker, so that I lost a lot of weight. I probably lost a lot of weight also because of the nerves. And I just didn't really have the appetite because I was so anxious all the time. One of the players that got to get candy from the vending machine gave me a Twizzler, and I actually kept the Twizzler in my fanny pack. And it was one of those Twizzlers that you can like peel away the pieces. So after every meal, I would just like peel off a little piece and like eat it as dessert. And that was my life for like 10 days. And in the dorms, we got a water bottle. We got a fanny pack with a comb, Vaseline, toothbrush, and toothpaste. And I think that's it. But yeah, those were all the things that we could have. We couldn't bring in anything else. It was hard. And the clothes that we wore were the clothes that we wore. We did not get a change of clothes. We got like fresh socks and underwear, but like the shirt, pants, and jackets that we had were what we had. Very stinky, very fun. And in the dorms, on our off time, a lot, people would just be yapping most of the time because what else is there to do, right? And then people would make balls out of socks or shirts or underwear or whatever, and they'd play like kickball or soccer or play volleyball or whatever, or play bowling with like their little water bottles all stacked up. So that's kind of like what we did out there. In our free time in the mornings, there would be yoga sessions. People would be working out on the bunk bed bars, like doing pull-ups and stuff. Living in the dorms was like living in the TV show because, yeah, when lights were off, that means go to sleep. And we would try to get as much sleep as we could, but honestly, we don't know what time they were waking us up. People are estimating that we probably got 3 to 4 hours of sleep per night. And the way that they woke us up was the way that they would wake the people up in the show, where they would blast the lights on and blare the music, and every single day the music would just get louder and louder. So it was very like psychologically like, what's happening here? But yeah, so that was another aspect of living in the dorms that was crazy to me. Favorite moment in the dorms? There were a lot of silly moments in the dorms, I'd say. Honestly, this sounds so bad, but like, my favorite part in the dorm was probably getting that little bento box with the Spam and kimchi and fried egg. I don't know why they didn't show this in the show, because it would have been more salt in the wound of the people that got the scratch offs. But essentially we were, getting fed nasty food every single day. And the day that they do the scratch offs, right? People get in line for the scratch offs and we get in line for the food, because I'm hungry all the time. And the meal that we got was a bread roll, rice, Spam, kimchi, and fried egg. That was like the best meal in the dorms. So for the people that got the scratch offs and got nothing, they didn't eat. So they watched us eat. We were just like having a ball. Like, we're like, oh my God, the food is so good. I'm so grateful that I didn't get a scratch off. So yeah, I think honestly that was my favorite part, was that meal, because all the other food was just, it made me so sad, and I love to eat. Did any of the games feel fun to you, or was it all just stress? Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, there's that one scene of me crying in Mingle, but it was, it was a little bit more than that. It was a little bit more. But I would say, honestly, the Mingle game was really fun for me, because our team was so locked in. We had every single number from 2 to 12. So we had no issues at all. So I guess that's why we didn't really get shown that much in Mingle, because we would just like go to the room and be like, yay, we did it. No drama, no screaming, pushing people out of the rooms or anything. But yeah, Mingle was really fun because we were good at it. Another fun game for me was Pentathlon, honestly, because I did House of Cards, and I had been making houses of cards since I was little. So that was, I knew that I wouldn't be letting my team down. And I think that's what made it fun for me, because I wouldn't have felt guilty if we lost, which sounds really bad, but yeah. Catch was not fun for me. Catch was not fun, and it was all stress, because I do not play games. I am not athletically inclined at all. I think I even put that on my application, that I'm not athletically inclined. So baseball, basketball, football, whatever, kickball, like you name it, I suck at those sports so bad. So catch was really stressful for me, and I kind of did like the chicken thing, and I went all the way to the back, because I was like, I cannot catch or throw balls, and I would hate to be the one to get someone out because I threw a bad ball too. Like, I would feel so guilty. Literally, you can see me in the back of our line just stressed out and crying the whole time, because I just thought it would be so embarrassing to go home because I couldn't catch a ball, and I just knew that my friends and family would probably hold it over my head until the day I died. So yeah, catch was absolutely not fun. Also, it wasn't fun because, after 16 balls, the game is over, right? So whoever's left is safe. And so essentially, it kind of sucked hoping for the people to drop the ball, which meant that I was low-key hoping that some of my friends wouldn't make it past. And that was just such a terrible feeling to have. And I really didn't like feeling that way. I guess I had like survivor's guilt after that. But yeah, that kind of messed with my head a little bit. Like, oh my God, I was literally hoping for my friends to be eliminated. That kind of sucks. I hated that. Some of the games were fun and some were not. Everything you do in life is a stepping stone to grow. What do you plan on using this stepping stone for? What future are you going to build off of this? That is a very good question. I am just hoping that, unfortunately, I didn't really become a main character, which kind of sucked, but also I get it because I was playing very low key throughout the entire show. I feel like I did have some good moments in there that didn't get any screen time, but it's okay, it's fine. But I am just hoping that people discover the podcast and resonate with what I have to say in the podcast, and hopefully what I say and the lessons that I've learned and reflect on gives them clarity in their own lives. That's kind of really what I want, because throughout life I've felt very alone a lot of the time, And so I know it's hard to go through life alone and go through struggles alone, go through problems alone, because more often than not, you just kind of feel like, why is it me that's going through this? Or why doesn't this happen to anybody else? But really, that's not the case. Everyone's situation is different, but there's always someone out there that can relate to you, at least in some way. And so that's kind of like what my podcast is for, is just to create a community where people just don't feel alone. I know I keep repeating that, but really that's what it is. So I'm hoping that being on Squid Games, the challenge, will help me get exposure for my podcast. But also, it'd be cool if someone like discovered me and I became a model or something and I like got sponsorships and stuff. So I don't know, that'd be cool too. Ultimately, it's because I want to bring a positive light to this world, because I've learned a lot through life and I just want to share that and I just want to help people. Yeah. What was your strategy going in? Did you form any alliances or was it just vibes? I didn't really have a strategy going in. I kind of just thought, I'm a very charismatic and friendly person, so I'm sure that will get me far enough. But also in the back of my head, I definitely was like, I need to stick to people that I know will get me pretty far in the games, which kind of works out in my favor because I did get pretty far in the games. I would say I did have an alliance, but it wasn't like hardcore alliances where we're like, oh, we're going to get these people out and oh, watch out for these people. It was really just kind of like forming friend groups, essentially, forming little cliques to me. I'm sure other people had other motives and strategies and whatever, but I guess, yeah, it was kind of just vibes for me. It was like, find people that I enjoy talking to and stick to those people because ultimately I trust them and that will get me far, I'm assuming. And it kind of did, so I don't know. Not really a strategy, I guess. A little bit of vibes, a little bit of strategy. Honestly, me being there ultimately really was just for the vibes. I was there for self-discovery, and I guess it kind of worked out in the end because eventually after that I got divorced, so that's fun. Did you feel like watching the actual Squid Game show helped you when you played in any of the games firsthand? Okay, y'all, like this is kind of crazy, but, well, I don't know, it's not that crazy, but no, I did watch the second season after I found out that I got in, just to, brush up on what possibly could be in the games. I did also search up a lot of the players from season 1 to hear their insight about the games as well. And for season 1, I can't remember what exactly the games were, but they weren't very skill-based, I'd say. So I kind of just assumed that the second season would be the same. Also because there's like a huge variety of ages there. There's like young people there, there's older people there, there's elderly people there, I would say. So I figured that the games wouldn't be too physically taxing or skill-based because we're all just so different. Not all of those people there were athletically inclined. Example A, I didn't train or anything. And when I watched a lot of the TikToks and stuff that the players from the first season made, I remember one girl said that she didn't do any sort of prepping whatsoever. And she got really far. I think she made it like top 10 or whatever. So I was like, you know what? If she got to top 10 without doing any training, I think I'll be okay. And what threw me for a loop was that for season 2, there's the game where, you pick up the little thingies, gongi, and then there's like the hacky sack one where you're kicking the thing, and those are kind of skill based, or like you at least have to practice those. But I was like, surely they're not going to do that, surely they're not going to put those things in there. I was like, I don't know what I was thinking, but they ended up being in pentathlon. And so when I saw those games, my heart dropped. I was so scared. But then when I saw the cards, I was like, wait, what is that? I can do that. So through the grace of God, I was protected in that moment. Mingle, I did not think Mingle was going to be a part of the game show as well, just because in the show it got so violent and it got so scary. And like in the show, yeah, Mingle did end up getting very dark and scary. It was very much giving Lord of the Flies. So yeah, I guess watching the show did prepare me, but I was just a little too skeptical on what the games were, so I should have maybe paid attention a little bit more, but regardless, I got as far as I did, so, that's all I gotta say. Did you get to keep the clothes? No, we did not get to keep our clothes when we were eliminated. They made us pack a change of clothes to change into once we got eliminated, so we had to give back our t-shirt and our jacket and our shorts and even our shoes, which was kind of sad, but a lot of players after the games did buy their own clothes like off of Etsy or whatever, and which is super cute. And I would totally do that, but I looked really sad and frumpy in those clothes. It was giving diaper butt. So those clothes weren't necessarily flattering on me. So I just really didn't see a point in buying anything like that. But I think a cute little souvenir sweatshirt would be cute. Maybe like a green sweatshirt with like my numbers on the side. I think that'd be kind of cute. Just saying, just throwing that out there. I don't know. But no, they did not let us keep the clothes. We actually didn't even get to keep our water bottle or our fanny packs actually, but we got to keep the contents in the fanny pack because obviously they're not gonna reuse a toothbrush, they're not gonna reuse Vaseline. So my souvenir from the whole experience is a little tin of Vaseline with my number on it. Was Mingle stressful? Yeah, it was stressful. I guess I answered this in the other questions. It was stressful, but because our team was just so locked in, we had a good time. And it was actually very easy for us to get through the first few rounds of numbers. But as the game progressed, people were becoming a lot more on edge, I'd say, and a lot more aggressive. And I am kind of like, yeah, $4 million is a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna stand for what's right. So I think ultimately in the end, it did become very dicey and people were acting in a way that was fueled by money, and money is the root of all evil. So it was very scary vibes in there. People were getting kind of scary. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. People were getting kind of scary, and that was kind of, I was not vibing. So that was what started to stress me out, was the people, I guess. But I mean, outside of the game, everyone is fine and all that, but people were becoming different in that game. Was there freaky stuff in the dorms? Not that I'm aware of. I was very oblivious to everything that was going on in the dorms because I was just in my own world. I even took a nap during the whole doll thing that was happening in the dorms. I missed a lot of what was going on because I was sleeping. But as far as I know, no, there were definitely some romances that were happening in there that I was like, wait, did they come in here together or did they meet here? What if their romance gets shown on camera? They did provide protection in the dorms, which I thought was funny and also nice. You know, they're being prepared for the worst. But as far as I know, I do not think anyone used those. I think people would throw them on each other's beds as a joke and stuff. But as far as I know, I don't think anybody did any freaky stuff with one another. Also because we were just so tired and kind of stinky wearing the same clothes every day. So I wouldn't even want to get freaky with anyone in the dorms because it was just like, I mean, obviously at the time I was married, but I just kind of felt gross every day. And the beds were like literally 3 or 4 feet apart from each other. So if people were able to get away with doing that kind of stuff, kudos to them, because that sounds really hard. Was the last round of Mingle scripted? Mingle, that last round where we decided not to play anymore, was not scripted. And I know that's really hard to believe because how did we come out to an even number? And how did we all agree to stop playing? But when I tell you, things were getting really bad the further we got along. Things were getting really, really, really bad. And this was after being in the games for probably like 10 days or so. Living in that situation for 10 days where you're losing weight, not eating enough, where you're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough daylight, you're being woken up at random times in the day, you're like trust issues with everyone is on 10, you're hungry. Yeah, eventually it kind of gets to you in the end. So I think ultimately we were all just very exhausted and tired and fed up, and just the way that the game was being played out and how people were starting to act, I think it scared all of us. And that's when we decided not to play anymore. We were all standing there holding hands for a really long time. They brought out the marbles, which we did not expect. And yeah, that part wasn't scripted at all. I think the last number was supposed to be 2. We would have gone into the rooms, whoever was left over, because I think more teams or more pairs made it past in that last round of mingles because we stopped playing. Because there's no way there was 22 rooms all in that mingle space for all of us to be safe. I think they just didn't know what to do, and so they brought out all those boxes of marbles and they were like, okay, this is how we give them the marbles. So yeah, definitely not scripted. I know it looks scripted. I know it seems cheesy, but really we were just so fed up. We were just done with playing. We did not want to play anymore. So no, it was not scripted. What would you say was the biggest challenge or struggle you had during the show? I don't know. Honestly, I guess the biggest struggle I had was being mic'd up. Honestly, being mic'd up really stressed me out because what if I said something that got caught in the mic and then they used it and it was like taken in the wrong way, you know? Or because sometimes I could be a little bit sassy, a little bit shady, and I just didn't want that coming around and biting me in the butt. It was kind of hard just being mindful of what I was saying. Not saying I wasn't being true to myself or anything. I think I was just scared of saying something that could be taken out of context. Sometimes when we talked, or would want to gossip or something, we'd like kind of cover our mics like this and be like, oh my God, like that was so crazy. Like, did you see that? What marbles game did you play? Okay, I'm really sad, but also at the same time relieved that they didn't show our marbles game. But essentially we did a guessing game. My partner, Chris, player 318, let me pick the game. And one of the biggest games is throwing the marbles into like rings or into pots or into whatever. And I was so fed up with being there after mingles that I was just sort of like, I was like, God, if you want me to be here, if I'm meant to be here, you're gonna let me be here. And if I'm not meant to be here, then you're gonna send me home. So I'm gonna bet on my lucky number 7. So I told Chris that we would do a guessing game. And we put a certain amount of marbles in our hands and guessed the total. And I guessed 7 and he guessed 8. And I think the number of marbles was 11. So he beat me by 1 number. And so I was like, damn, like that was kind of close. Like, I don't know. But ultimately, I'm glad that it played out the way that it did. And I'm glad that I got to go home because at the time that I came home, if I had gone home any later or if I had gone home any earlier, that would have changed the course of my life in some way, if that makes sense. And I wish not to be cryptic, but I came home at the right moment because certain events occurred, you know, before and after I returned that led to my divorce. And that ultimately changed my life. So being in Squid Games, I didn't win $4 million, but it did change my life. I'm grateful that I went home and that I was eliminated when I was. That is it. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating and asking me questions. And thank you for supporting me along my journey of Squid Games, like all the texts that I've gotten from all my friends and family, just cheering me on. That has meant so much to me. But yeah, welcome to my podcast. If you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will see you guys around. Bye.